Hi everyone, I am Cass with College of Lore,
I am the Penitent with College of Lore.
and this is episode 2 of the Academy, which is a podcast-esque thing, as I said in the first episode, where we are going to just talk about stuff that is relevant to D&D, relevant to especially the kinds of games we run, the way we run things, all that. And this session, this episode, is about the Curse of Strahd 5e module. Which is awesome because that's the module I'm using to start the campaign, the actual play that we have been posting on the channel. So if you are into Curse of Strahd, you should definitely go watch that. And you should also watch this video because we're going to talk about Curse of Strahd here.
Yeah.
So just to kind of jump into things, what is Curse of Strahd? It's a 5e module. It's a D&D 5e module. The notable thing about it is a lot more horror than most D&D 5e modules.
Yeah, I would say it's the most horror-based. Now, you don't necessarily have to run it that way.
No, you don't have to make it that scary. You can cut out a lot of it, but by design, it's scary. It's intense and it's scary. It is a rewrite of a much older module, which I think was just called Ravenloft, right? I don't remember.
God.
It's fine. It's an older module. There was an older module that this was based off of, and it's kind of a rewrite of that with somewhat less problems. It still has problems.
Yeah.
Please don't be racist. Please don't. It's bad. Don't be racist.
It's really good.
It's a great module. The biggest problem by far is the racism.
If you have seen our D&D ranked video, D&D 5e modules ranked.
It's at the top.
Yes.
It's the best one. It's the best module. It's super fun. Just so many racists. Promise it's not as bad as I make it sound. Just it's a big talking point.
The by the book portrayal of Esmeralda,
and to a degree other Vistani
and
Vanricton.
Yeah, basically every Vistani except for the one that got saved by a white man is supposed to be evil, which
is not great. Anyway, the focal point of Curse of Strahd is killing Strahd. He's a vampire. He's cursed. Hence the title. And freeing the land of Barovia, which is the land that he is ruling over, that is also cursed, from the curse that it is cursed with. How many times do you guys think I can say curse or variants thereof in one sentence without swearing for real?
Curse words. We're demonetized for curse words.
Yeah, curse words. The other great thing about Curse of Strahd, and this is something that we talk about in the ranked video, is it is a great way to get player characters that might not get along or be super friendly to interact with each other because they are stuck together. You cannot leave Barovia once you enter it, and unless your players get mad enough to just wander off in separate directions, please don't let them do that. They are stuck together and they are going to be traveling together, and it's a great way to force them to be friends with each other. If you have a bunch of edgy loners, or even just a couple edgy loners in your group, this is a great way to get them to make friends and open up. We've done that so many times.
Yeah, if you don't work together, you die.
You die, and it's really horrible. Something I say often in Curse of Strahd games is death is probably one of the best fates you can meet in Barovia. Keep that in mind when you run it. This video, again, it's obviously it's mostly for DMs. If you're watching this Curse of Strahd detail video and you are in a Curse of Strahd game and you've never played it before, why are you doing that to yourself? You're gonna ruin it.
Right, massively. Here lies spoilers.
Here lies Curse of Strahd spoilers. Sorry, I should have said that earlier. I guess anyone could have expected as much. Please do a Session 0. We talked about that in the other Academy video. Even if you don't normally do a Session 0, please do a Session 0 in this one. Yeah. It gets really dark. There are some bad trigger warnings that I talk about a little in this. There are limits that get tested in this module in a lot of ways that a lot of people might be uncomfortable with. Please make sure that everyone involved is comfortable with this. Please make sure that as a DM you read through the module and find out if there's anything you're not comfortable with. Make sure that you know where your player's boundaries lie because there is some bad stuff in here.
Yeah,
admittedly, some of it is hard to cut out. Strahd being an incel is kind of hard to cut out because it's kind of the focal point of the whole problem. You can tweak it, you can make it less apparent, but, like, you gotta put it into some degree. If that's something your players aren't comfortable with or you're not comfortable running, probably don't play Curse of Strahd.
Yeah, there are some things. There's a lot of gore.
A lot of gore, a lot of terrible fates being met for people.
There are some creatures that your players may not be a fan of.
Yeah.
Your typical horror fare creatures, zombies, vampires, werewolves.
Yeah. I personally have a very, very debilitating fear of zombies. They terrify me. Just, like, thinking about them at night is enough to, like, make me paranoid for the whole night. We have removed all, like, proper zombie encounters. There's some undead. I can handle skeletons. I cannot handle traditional zombies at all. If that's something your players don't vibe with, you gotta be mindful of that. You can totally cut that out and replace it, but you gotta be mindful of it.
There's also notably a lot of discussion of suicide.
Yeah.
In the book.
Yeah. Especially around, like, obviously that's a big thing with one of the focal points of the story. Yeah. There's a lot of that. There's some really dark stuff in here. There are 2 different areas that detail child death, which is a trigger for a lot of people for kind of an obvious reason. Child harm and child death, which is... I actually note the big areas where that comes up in this document, in the outline of what I'm going to be talking about, so... If you're not comfortable with that, you can usually pretty much cut it out okay.
Yeah.
It's not super relevant anywhere, but it is something to be mindful of. There's a bunch of trigger warnings that apply to this, and you should really be careful about it if you know your players are sensitive to anything in particular. You should read through very carefully to make sure nothing you're going to use has anything like that in it, because there is a lot of it in here.
Yeah.
It's a great module. It's fun to play if your players are okay with that, or if they are in a place where they can navigate around it appropriately. You just have to be careful, because you don't want to hurt anyone. This game is fun first and foremost. If someone's upset, if someone's scared, real world, as a player, as a person, they're not going to have fun.
That being said, this game is a lot of fun.
It can be, yeah. It's super fun. It's super fun to run, because there are so many different directions you can take things. This is such an expansive module, with so many opportunities to add stuff in and change stuff if you want to. It's really, really... It's a great place to start if you're a DM who's comfortable taking things to a slightly higher level. If you're, like, first-time DMing, probably don't go with this module, because it's really intense and loaded with stuff. But if you're a DM who's kind of looking to take their DMing skills to the next level, this is a great place to start, because there are so many options to branch out, and still so much content if you don't branch out.
It's not the worst you could go, though, for a first-time DM.
No,
but
it's definitely not.
Look at Lost Minds first.
Yeah, look at Lost Minds first if you're DMing for the first time. Unless you really feel like taking it on, in which case, good luck. If you really like horror, it's the way to go. So, we're gonna kind of talk about now, player entry. There are scripted entries to Barovia in the beginning of the module. You don't need them. If they're boring or if they don't vibe for your players, they can literally just wake up in the forest in Barovia. I do that all the time. That's what I did in the actual play that we're doing.
Or in the middle of town.
Yeah.
Or
in the rooms of the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is the Death House.
Or into Castle Ravenloft.
Or into Castle Ravenloft, yeah. There are tons of fun places to put your players, if you don't want to put them just randomly in the forest. Death House is kind of the pre-story thing that you can usually run to get your characters up to level 3. You can start it and run it even if you don't need to level them up, or if you start at level 3 or higher. It is such a good starting point to show the horror level of this game and to kind of settle into what level you're comfortable with.
That being said, if you do start at level 3 here, there are some adjustments to make.
Yeah. Especially if you're doing a lot of encounters. You should buff some things, you should change some things. The encounters in this are largely meant for level 1 and 2 parties. Change that if you need to. We also often run bigger parties, so even if you're running level 1 parties, you might want to tweak it a little bit, just to kind of see what you can do with making it fit for that. Encounters are hard to balance, guys.
Yeah.
They're really hard to balance. If you're good at it, you're good at it. If you're bad at it, it's a steep learning curve. This is one of the areas that has a child death warning applicable to it. It is entirely avoidable. It's like one room, unless you really want to play up the kids, that are ghosts. If you don't vibe with that, you can cut it entirely. It's super easy to cut. However, we really like the ghost kids, so we often kind of play that up. We often actually play up the whole family that originally lived in the Death House.
Unless I'm wrong, I don't think the parents are supposed to appear at all in the module.
I don't think they do. I think it's just like they're supposed to be implied. But they're super fun to have in there. We tweak their personalities. Have the Ghost Kids' parents there, Rose and Thorn have their parents there. If you want to, this is something we do a lot, we make the family, like, super dysfunctional and weird and messed up. We have made some of them really bad people, like, especially the mother, considering that she and her husband kind of ran a cult, which is also a trigger warning for this area, is cult stuff. You kind of can't cut it out. If you can't handle it, don't run Death House. You can change it if you want, but it takes a lot of editing. We run lots of characters in this as terrible people, which is kind of what you'd expect from a module full of terrible people and terrible things. If you can't handle that, obviously you don't need to put it in. You can also, if you don't want to go into the kids being dead, you can just have them be illusions presented by the house, which is a really great way to avoid talking about the fact that children died here.
Yeah, there are, you mentioned the one child death thing.
Yeah.
There are also children-sized coffins at one point in this game,
yes,
too.
That's another good thing to note. I forgot about that, yeah. So yeah, you can cut that out if you're doing an illusory thing instead. The PCs, if you want to have them interact with the family, if you want to have the family be almost a welcoming party, that can be a really fun way to run it. Like we talked about, tweak the encounter in the bottom of Death House as much as you need or want. We have put some weird stuff there. We have put false hydras there before, in at least one game.
I actually highly recommend changing the Shambling Mound in general.
To anything else.
I love the false hydra that we've done there.
Yeah, that was super fun. We have had player characters get rescued from the encounter there by Strahd as a ploy to engage with and potentially recruit them to his side. Which is super fun.
We had a ritual turn one player into a vampire character. Turn one character into a vampire.
We're gonna turn players into vampires in Curse of Strahd, and nobody's gonna be able to stop us. No. We had a ritual turn a character into a vampire. That was a lot of failed saves that led to that event. There were a lot of chances to stop that happening, and you guys rolled a lot of, like, 2s and 4s, or something like that. My players rolled a lot of weird rolls in that game. Really bad rolls. But it's fun. You feel free to change it, do whatever you want down there. There are a ton of options. As with the rest of this module, there are a ton of opportunities to make things more or less interesting, but don't make them less interesting. What's the point of that?
Real quick thing I want to say about the Death House first. If you are using the map provided or the images provided for your players, this is a message I learned the hard way. Do not show them the map unless you have crossed out and erase entirely the part of the map that says Death House.
Yeah, that would make things hard.
It's also worth noting that the children's pictures are blue.
Yeah.
And the first group I ever ran Curse of Strahd for, I showed them the picture of Rose and Thorn, and one of the players looked at me and said, "Okay, so they're ghosts."
Yeah. Yeah, you can maybe not show your players everything. You shouldn't show your players every picture in this book. There's a ton of spoilers.
Is an edit somewhere online of a human-colored Rose and Thorn.
Yeah, which is probably very helpful to have.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe I'll edit that into this video, if I remember. After you do Death House, usually you end up in the Village of Barovia, which is usually where you should start anyway.
Death House is anchored to the Village of Barovia, typically.
Unless you want to put it somewhere else. We put it in Kresk once for no reason at all, just because we wanted to.
Put it in Castle Ravenloft.
Yeah, put it right next to Castle Ravenloft. You walk out of this terrible, terrible house, and you'd like, hey, what the heck?
It's inside the crypt of Castle Ravenloft.
Yeah, you walk out of this terrible little house, and you're like, why am I in another crypt? We just got out of one of these.
Curse of Strahd, but everything is contained within the walls of Castle Ravenloft.
Nightmarish. Nightmarish scenario. I hate that idea. But yeah, usually after you get out of Death House, you'll be in the Village of Barovia. You're free to change that. You're free to not do Death House at all and put them somewhere else. Castle Ravenloft is a great place to start your players if you want to make them very scared very quickly. Which I love doing. Notable by-the-book NPCs in the Village of...
Actually, notable, speaking of Castle Ravenloft, is that the Village of Barovia, it is good to point out to your players right when you get here, it sits in the shadow of Castle Ravenloft, and you can see...
over it.
Yeah, you can see this castle in the distance anytime you're in the village.
Yeah. it's awesome. It's a great detail to point out. It just makes them feel watched, which they are, and they should feel that way. But yeah, notable by the book NPCs for the village of Barovia, Irina, and her brother Ismark.
Yeah, don't forget Irina.
Don't forget about Irina. Mark either. He's a cool guy. Unless you trans Ismark's gender like we
we'll talk about
do.
in a sec.
For some reason, we decided to start doing that. Irina's kind of the star of the show.
Yeah.
In a lot other than Strahd, in a lot of ways.
It's not called Curse of Irina.
It's called Curse of Irina, although she's probably suffering more objectively, like a lot more. She is the one who has to suffer for it all. But yes, if you want to, I will run through the very, very basics of what Irina is. She's the reincarnation of the guy Strahd is an incel about.
Girl.
Right. Girl. Girl Strahd. Unless you really want it to be that way, I guess. She is a reincarnation of the girl Strahd was an incel about 500 years ago. 500 years ago.
She keeps reincarnating with vaguely the same physical features.
Usually the bright red hair is kind of the big one. You can do eyes too if you want.
We've had certain incarnations of Irina in the past, in various games, be like full-blood Vistani.
Yeah. We've also had them be party members, if that's something you want to do.
Yeah, a great hook, especially if you have a player who's foggy on their backstory, is to make them an Irina that was... The easiest way to get Irina out of Barovia and pulled back in is to have her mother, who is not mentioned in the book, be Vistani and have taken her out. Yeah,
to keep her safe,
Yes.
Which is a great hook, and if you get stuck back there, that would really suck a lot. For that person. She's, the original person is Tatiana. You can read that in the book. You can read all of this backstory in the book. Strahd is a little incel guy. I'm trying to swear I don't want to get demonetized.
It's worth noting, by the way, that if you are so inclined, there's a lot you can do with Irina.
Yeah. You can take her everywhere. She's a fun NPC to bring along.
Yeah, I like giving her energy. The book.
I talk about that a little.
Yeah, the book goes out of the way not to mention that she is not a damsel.
Yeah, she's not. You can give her a sword. You can give her a spell book. You can bring her along as a proper combat-capable NPC and level her up with the players, which we do all the time, which we're doing in the thing.
It is a fun detail to add to make her a lesbian.
Yes, it's so funny. Not just out of spite for Strahd, but that is a funny thing to write in. Man, Strahd really has just an obsession with this girl, and oops, she's a lesbian, actually, in this version. Maybe in all of them. You could turn Sergei, Strahd's brother, into a girl, if you wanted to. You could make her Strahd's sister. You can make everyone a lesbian. You can make Strahd a girl. We talk about that somewhere else.
No longer Sergei, now ma'am lesbian.
Yeah, I love that bit. That's a great bit.
Also worth noting that Strahd, in particular, is usually canon, and I believe, if not outright stated, heavily implied to be bi.
Yeah.
Which
is great. He has, like, a male consort or whatever.
Yeah, if you're so inclined to make Irina either a cis man or trans mask, it will not be a deterrent to Strahd anymore.
It will not, which is fun. Also, by the book to note, Irina Ismark's dad just died by the book. You don't have to do that. I'm not doing it in the game I'm running on this channel. You can run that. You can run him as alive. You can run him as alive, and then Strahd shows up like 2 sessions in to murder him.
Yeah, sometimes.
Which is fun.
Sometimes Strahd being, or Kulion being dead.
Yeah. Strahd being dead is the goal of the story.
Is fun. Sometimes Kulion being alive is also fun.
You can use that as leverage to hurt your players.
He could be a very interesting, very sad character.
Yeah. He's a sad little guy. He's miserable. All the time.
A lot of his funeral quest is...
It's a good way to get an encounter in early.
A good way to get... it's a great place to put an early Strahd encounter, if you'd like to.
Oh, man. I just remembered, one of the things I want to talk about, and I don't know if we get to this in a minute. Anyway. Killing Kulion is fun. Having him already dead is fun. One of the things that I have run with Strahd that you could implement here, this is an idea that I got from Reddit. I will try to find that Reddit post and link it in the description. There's a Curse of Strahd subreddit. You should check it out. It has a ton of cool stuff. The idea is basically Strahd shows up, does horrible stuff. You can set it in Barovia or anywhere else. It's best to set it super early. Strahd shows up, does horrible things, maybe kills Koleon, maybe, like, seriously wounds Arena, maybe kills almost all of the party. Or almost kills all of the party. Because he's that strong at the beginning. The party is super weak at the beginning compared to him. And then you have him snap his fingers and it's all a Modify Memory spell. Which is so scary and so fun. You can do all sorts of mind tricks. Strahd is the master of mind tricks. Do that. Use that. I talk about that later, but use that.
Yeah.
He's scary.
Yeah.
And you should make him scary. You should make him as scary as you can. And charismatic.
It is a good strategy. It's not something we always do, but have your players encounter Strahd early and often. And you can do that here, especially if Arena at any point goes out.
Yeah.
Worth noting, typically, your first point of contact with someone is going to be Ismark.
Yeah.
If you're a DM.
Yeah. Which is a great way to start.
Arena will not come to the door.
Yeah.
And by the book, Ismark is not home.
Yeah. I don't remember where is he normally?
Tavern.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that's fair. I don't run Curse of Strahd by the book anymore, so I don't remember. If you want to run Curse of Strahd by the book, go read the module. That's not what we're here for.
Which reminds me, do you want to talk about the tavern for a sec?
Yeah. NPCs in general, but especially places like the tavern. Please make all NPCs dynamic. You should do that in any game, no matter what you're doing. One of my favorite things we have ever done, the tavern owners, the three Vistani tavern owners, they have names in the book. Use their names. Make them dynamic, make them interact with not just the players, but each other, make them play off each other, give them different personalities and energies. Do that for every NPC. Make NPCs fun. There are so many of them in this game, and all of them can come to life in a way that, because there are so many, makes every area feel so real and vivid, and that is something that is doable in a lot of modules, but especially easy to do in this one if you just put a little bit of effort into picking even one or two traits for them personality-wise. Have them have a goal or a personality trait or a flaw or something, just one is usually enough. And let that drive their interactions with the players. That is such a good thing to do, and it will make your players feel so immersed and involved, and this is such a good place to practice that. One of my favorite things that we ever do in the entirety of Barovia all the time, and I did not do it in this one, really, but usually we do it, is the tavern owners are so fun if you want them to be. They can be mysterious, they can be really helpful, or really, really stressfully vague. You have so much room, with a lot of characters. Donovich, the guy who runs the church, is also great to do that. If you have any religious characters, clerics, paladins, or just people who follow a god, take them by the church. It's a fun experience. Usually he's Lathander denomination.
Yes.
You can have him be non-denominational if you want. You can be weird about it if you want.
You may also want to push your players in the direction, if they're making a cleric or paladin, and they aren't sure on what god, it could be interesting to push in the direction of choosing Lathander as their god.
Yes, because of that, and because it's relevant to Barovia in some ways.
Yes, extremely relevant to Barovia.
Yeah. Also fun, I will talk about this later, is the Raven Queen, because Barovia is tied to the Shadowfell.
Yes.
If you want to be weird about it, make your characters, or have one of your characters, if they're really not sure and they don't want to do Lathander or something traditional, Raven Queen's a great bet. It's fun.
Also, possibly more interesting, possibly worse, is Vecna.
Yeah, Vecna's also an option. That also has stuff going on here. Presumably the Dark Powers are Vecna is what is... I don't know if that's 100% confirmed, but it's what we think. It's what most people think.
Yeah, other little changes you can make here. So, this one... It's one we do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one that I like to talk about a lot, because... So, Arena, according to the book, is supposed to be the adopted daughter.
Yes.
Of
Who cares?
Koleon. Now, I don't like making her that way.
Yeah.
I like making them full birth siblings, Arena and Ismark.
I do too.
The one thing that does is it kind of erases Arena being a POC, but simply change that by
just
making Ismark also a POC.
Or make their mom a person of color.
Yeah.
Mom of color, MOC.
So both Ismark and Arena would be POC in that case.
And that can be really fun. You can do whatever you want with that stuff.
The other thing that I really like doing, we talked about this, touched on a little earlier, Ismark is a trans woman.
Yeah. We love messing around with genders and sexualities. If you haven't picked that up by now, sorry. Ismark is a trans woman. Venricton is also a trans woman. If you don't like that, bye.
Also,
she's also bi.
Yeah.
If you were wondering if that wasn't clear from what I just said. We're gonna add more sexuality than genders to our characters every time someone complains.
There are some canons, basically, where just, like, you know, you may ask, what does it add to change their gender? And first of all, it adds representation.
Yeah.
But beyond that, there is a plot we like to add in a lot of the time. With Rahadin, one of Strahd's shape-changing assistants.
Yes.
Having a previous relationship with her to try to get close to Irina, under the guise of...
lots of people, but usually Casimir.
Yeah, usually Casimir. Which is just a really interesting plot point that I honestly kind of recommend running with.
Yeah. Using Rahadin for more than just, like, following Strahd around is great. Yeah,
Rahadin being able to take on different forms is really useful for getting into places.
I don't know if it's underutilized, but I don't use it enough.
It's pretty underutilized.
I don't use it enough. I'm gonna have to remember that for later in this game. Don't worry about that.
Which is why we love doing the thing where he used to be in a guise, dating
Femme
Ismark.
Who we usually call Kindra, but you can use whatever name you want.
Which is really interesting when you meet the actual Casimir.
Yeah, who is not great to have that fight with.
Yeah.
You don't want to pick that fight with him. He's sad already. There are a lot of things we don't usually run.
There's
in
not
Barovia.
A lot that...
Okay, not a lot, but like...
There's not a lot we like in the store.
Yeah.
The general store is kind of boring, but there are things to do.
One time we ran, like, Periwimple as the Fated Ally, and he had, like, portal opening abilities or I don't remember exactly what it was. It was awesome, though. It was the coolest thing ever. You can pick any character to have weird powers or be the Fated Ally or whatever.
He could glimpse other planes.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun. It was super fun.
I don't like the Mad Mary thing.
I don't either. I think it's kind of weird and annoying and not great, and we don't run it. We don't usually do the Dream Pastry thing. If you want your players to go to Old Bone Grinder, you can do the Dream Pastry thing. It's a great reason for them to go there, or you can just put it on their path.
The main reason I don't like doing it is because I like making Barovia feel more empty.
Yeah. Barovia is fun to run as a ghost town.
Yeah.
There's, like, maybe 3 or 4 people here other than, like, Irina and Ismark and maybe Kolyan, and that's fun to do. People are scared and they've left.
We are assuming, by the way, if you've read this, that you either have the book in front of you or have previously read the book.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this.
If you haven't, you should do that. Or read along, yeah.
You should buy the book through legitimate means.
And, yeah. Definitely don't Google PDF sites or go to anyone's Google Drive that has documents like this accessible for free. That's a terrible idea and you should never do it.
Yeah.
Don't do that. You don't want to be pirating content. No, don't. Don't, for sure.
You wouldn't steal a horse.
You wouldn't download a vampire? I would download a vampire.
I do like running, as it brings up, the ghostly procession thing.
Yes, that's fun. I forgot about that. Yeah. The first time I ever played Curse of Strahd, my player character and a couple of the other player characters, did all of us go?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All of us followed the ghostly procession all the way to Castle Ravenloft and somehow did not die immediately. And to this day, I'm not quite sure how that happened. We, like, walked through the chapel. We were all over the place. It was a mess.
Yep.
Yeah.
It sure
was. Something there? Wasn't, like, the...
Yeah,
I don't remember what it was.
The marionette.
No, I meant, like, in the chapel. Was there not something happening there?
I don't know.
I thought you put, like, the sun sword in there or something and we just ignored it.
Oh, yeah, there was an item. There was one of the items in there.
We just grabbed it and took it. Did we even take it?
No, you missed it entirely.
Oh, that's better. Yeah, we made mistakes. If you think your players won't do crazy stuff like that, you're wrong. Players do stupid stuff. I would know. You would know.
You can put the items with these specific powers, the ones you need to win the game, in very specific rooms.
Yeah.
Obviously in there.
Yeah.
And your players will walk by them.
Alternatively, you can put them in really weird places, and your characters will find them by accident, because people do that sometimes.
My favorite is one I've removed from the list of options.
Yeah.
Where it's just buried under a fork in the road somewhere.
Which is so useless.
Are my players running around with a shovel?
Yeah, they're gonna dig some holes in the ground. They're gonna put Strahd in one, put him in the dirt. He can't kill you if he's underground.
Speaking of the Sun Sword, by the way,
yeah,
it is worth mentioning we have made a change that I am in favor of universalizing.
Yes.
Which is the fatal blow to Strahd has to be done with the Sun Sword.
Yeah. One, it makes it so your characters actually have a reason to go get it in case they don't care. We also buff its damage. It's not normally 2d10 radiant, but it is because we need strong weapons to kill things in our games. Also, another fun thing to do with the Sun Sword is something we've started doing is make it change to fit the wielder weapon-wise. For example, one of the times that we had a character pick up the Sun Sword, she was a rogue and it changed to be a rapier. That was fun. She was also Irina's lesbian love interest in that game.
Yeah.
Which was great. You can do a lot of fun stuff with the Sun Sword. You can fuck around with Sergei being the only one who can use it, or like a reincarnation of him, which is also something we do a lot. By the book, that's not a thing. We're gonna talk about Sergei later.
Yeah.
Sergei's ending with Irina is the worst thing ever.
The canon best ending for Irina is the dumbest thing I've ever read.
Yeah, I will talk about it when we get to that area. It's bad. It's really stupid and bad, and you shouldn't run it, and if you run it, you should feel bad. But yeah, the only other thing that we tweak a little bit, Irina gets run as a lot of ages in our games. She's like 21 in the one we're running right now. You can put her anywhere from like 15 if you want to be really like fucked up about it, to like late 20s if you want her to be older and sadder. You can do anything you want. You could make her a baby, which I think we actually did in one game.
We did
that
one.
Was complicated.
We also did another one where she was about 5 or 6.
Yeah, which maybe don't do quite the same thing with Strahd there, unless you really want to be super messed up about it.
So the idea behind Strahd there, if that's the case, is basically
he wants to take her early and raise her into
it, which is extremely messed up.
It's terrible, but it makes sense. Why would he wait until she's 18 to find her? You know, you can be that dark if you want to. You can also hint at it or whatever.
It's also, I've also seen takes of Irina as middle-aged or approaching elderly, even.
Yeah. We like to do reincarnations of Sergei as well as reincarnations of Tatiana.
Yeah, which for some reason, it's a really obvious idea.
And I don't know why more people don't do it. It's great. It's a great idea. You can have an automatic love interest for Irina unless someone else in your party really wants to kiss her, which is also fun.
It's also an interesting idea to make people in your party Sergei.
Yeah, we did that once. Actually, technically several times.
Yes.
We've done a lot of versions of that character. We love him. He's great.
Because it gives interesting motivation with, you know, the kind of built-in Irina romance potential.
Yeah.
But also, it gives a lot of interesting interactions with Strahd.
Yeah, it does. It also gives you someone predisposed to use the Sun Sword.
Yes.
To kill Strahd, which is great. If your players, for some reason, don't want to hold the Sun Sword, having Irina kill Strahd with it, unless your players, like, usually players want the final blow. But that's great cinematography.
Or your players accidentally kill Irina.
Don't do that! That would be so bad. Can you imagine? Like, I can't imagine how mad Strahd would be if that happened. I think that would be great to run. That would be a nightmare for the players.
Yeah.
So that's Barovia.
One thing I'll say about Barovia. The one thing, I think, as we're kind of wrapping up here, the key thing I would want to remember here is this is where you get your players invested in the hook of the game.
Yeah. If they're not invested by the time they leave Barovia, certainly by the time they leave Serapul, which is the next area we're going to talk about, you've done something wrong and they're not going to enjoy the rest of the game.
Yeah. You want them to buy in, okay, we may not know each other well, we may not necessarily even like each other.
We're stuck here together.
We're buying in to killing Strahd, and whether or not to take Irina with them, you probably want Irina to steer them towards Serapul.
Yeah. And you want to keep Irina alive, preferably. That's good to do.
Yes.
Irina and Ismark should steer them towards Serapul. your players should be interested in killing Strahd, even if it's just so they can leave this godforsaken hellhole and go back to whatever they're doing before. It's great to pull them out of the middle of something.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that, sometimes your players will not go where you put Ismark.
Yeah.
So it's definitely worth...
You can have him meet them somewhere.
Yeah, you can move him around.
Move anyone around.
Now, by the book, Ismark wants them to escort Arena to Vallaki.
Yeah.
That is a quest that works, but I found it's really difficult when they actually accomplish it if you haven't interrupted them at any time.
Yeah.
Because then what do you do?
Yeah, then what do you do? So Cerapool.
Yes.
This is, if you haven't read the book or if you're reading along with us, this is where the Taroka reading, which is kind of like a tarot reading except designed for this game specifically, this is where it's done, usually. That tells you, it's 5 cards, it tells you where the 3 items you need to defeat Strahd are, who the person who can help them most is, and where you're going to fight him in the final fight. That's where that reading is done. Feel free to pre-plan all of that, but also feel free to just draw random cards and pray.
Doing it live can be really fun.
If you're doing it online, you may as well pre-prep it.
Yeah, random stuff can get difficult because you can get a situation like
having it randomly be buried in a fork in the road.
Or you can get what almost happened to us once, and what I've heard of other people having happened to them. All 3 items in the same city.
Yeah, that's a nightmare. And if you need to, stack the deck, you can. The first time both of us ran it, usually it works out okay. But if you're worried about it at all, you need to pre-plan things. Or you need to have a really good reason for someone to come back somewhere. Yeah,
you can stack the deck. There's some showmanship in reading live, even if you've already planned the cards.
Yeah, that's fun. We do that. Except for the game we're currently doing, which is no one knows where the items are right now.
Sometimes you can do really interesting things where you, what's the word I'm looking for? You're right. Use real tarot cards.
Yeah, that's fun.
And you kind of decide from those, and also from your knowledge of the map, where's the item?
Yeah. So to talk about that a little bit more, Madame Eva is the character who usually does the reading. She's a Vistani seer. Make her more dynamic than just doing the reading. Something we did in the actual play is a 1-card tarot reading for each character's future or fate in Barovia. It's always been weirdly accurate for us. It might be for you, and it adds a ton of spice and detail to Cerapool that is not otherwise there. Also, Cerapool is one of the only places in Barovia proper, Ravenloft proper, whatever, that I like to run as full of life and joy. Whether that's because this is a game where the Vistani serve Strahd and they're not scared of him, or because they, for some reason, know he can't really hurt them. You decide, but it's kind of like the calm before the storm. You get to Cerapool and then everything else goes to hell. But yeah, if you don't want to do the reading that way, you can also have Esmeralda do it. She's also a seer. You can not do the reading, you can have the PCs find the items just randomly and naturally, you can have, Arena tell them some kind of legend about them, or Van Richten, or anyone.
Van Richten is a good one to use.
Yeah. Van Richten knows stuff. You can probably have him know more stuff. Saying him is weird, because we always run Van Richten as a trans woman. That is another thing we do. You can leave Arena at Cerapool or Vallaki if you want, but you shouldn't, because she's more fun if you bring her with you.
So, one thing about Madame Eva that we sometimes forget to run, and sometimes remember to, is that she is secretly Strahd.
No! She's not secretly Strahd.
She usually secretly has a connection to Strahd.
Whatever that you want that to be is. She could be his ex-girlfriend. She could be his sister.
I wish, for the life of me, I remember what the actual thing was canonically.
Was it not that they were, dating or something? There's some kind of connection there. If I'm wrong, I'm gonna be
This is the one thing we didn't look up beforehand.
I didn't look anything up, so don't say that. Didn't look anything up. I'm just talking for fun.
And profit.
She's connected to Strahd. You can do whatever you want with that, or nothing. Maybe none of you.
Yeah, but, use a
Or
connection to
evolved.
Strahd there, and
Yeah.
positive, negative, a little bit of both.
Yeah, it's fun.
There is a lot of potential here to have the Visoni be very welcoming.
Yeah. Which is good.
Um,
It's, like I said, it's kind of a calm before the storm thing.
They may. I've heard of them loaning the players horses.
Yeah.
Uh,
You don't need to make them bad people, especially not all of them.
No.
Please don't make all of them bad people.
There is virtually no situation where any race of people
Is all bad.
should ever be any one blanket statement.
Yeah, don't do that. Again, no racism, please.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Visoni are great. I don't think they should be run as all evil for not just the racism reasons, but also because it's kind of boring.
Yeah,
There's so many more opportunities for those characters to be dynamic and fun to be around if you don't do that.
and I've always said Curse of Strahd is one of the most replayable modules.
It
that
is.
exists.
There's so much stuff to do. You can put things everywhere. You can make players go different places.
If all your Vistani are evil and they're always evil, it kills part of that replay value.
It does, yeah. That's a kind of thing that you can run once if you really wanted to, but then people will expect.
Yeah.
And if you do it more than once, it kind of kills the vibe of a lot of characters. So after you leave Serpool, you start to kind of wander around, usually. You start to kind of travel through Barovia, Ravenloft, whatever you're calling the plane. I think it goes by both names. Like I've talked about this in a couple things. Do weird encounters during the travel, but it does not just have to be like werewolves and zombies and stuff. That setting is great for environmental encounters.
They actually don't have to be combat encounters at all.
Yeah. Combat encounters are fine if your players like farming experience, I guess. But don't do that, because then they'll just wander around the paths forever and not do anything important, and that would suck. But yeah, this setting is great for environmental encounters. Some examples, I don't remember if this is in the book, but it might be. Sections of the, travel paths looping is really fun, going over and over and over again, and you have to do something weird to escape that. Random natural disasters and weather events is fun. Weird non-hostile but weird creatures. Corrupted animals, animals that look wrong or act weird. Corrupted versions of normal things like rabbits or deer or wolves if you want. Obviously werewolves. We've run several times like dire werewolves, hostile and non-hostile, which can be fun.
Yeah.
Another thing that I like to do, if you're not running weird creatures and stuff, or in different areas maybe, no signs of life, no sound, nothing. I did this a little bit in the actual play game. There's no wind, there's no bird noises, no animals walking around, no water, just footsteps and breathing unless somebody says something. And that's scary too. Nothing is so scary too.
Dry storms are also a really interesting thing.
Yeah. I like talking about how Barovia only ever has dry storms. I think that's a fun little thing to throw in. Play up the scariness and wrongness and, twisted nature of the realm as a whole as much as you can. Most of the point of this game, other than the direct plot, is that PCs should constantly feel on edge and unsafe and nervous, even when they're in largely safe places and the path is not a largely safe place.
Sometimes the answer of what scary thing you're building towards being nothing is a really good answer.
There's this sense of apprehension and fear, and it never drops, and that's so threatening sometimes. Your players can wait forever and it'll never come.
Yeah.
That's terrifying. It's great. Old Bone Grinder.
Yeah,
We talked about that a bit, not very much.
I don't always include Old Bone Grinder in my games.
I don't always include it either. That's another child harm one. If you run it by the book, it's not great. There's a lot of death there.
Baking and eating children.
Yeah, it's not great. Don't do that to viewers watching. Not run it, just don't eat children. That's not a good thing to do. Old Bone Grinder is kind of on the way to Vallaki, I think, by the map.
Yes.
So you usually pass it if you're putting it in. It can be fun, it can also be super boring.
You can also find the deed to it in
the Death House.
Yeah, Death House.
Which is fun. I think I saw something the other day that was talking about fake achievements for Curse of Strahd, like video game achievements, and one of them was evict the hags in Old Bone Grinder by showing them the deed. And I thought that was an incredible idea, and I need someone to do it someday.
Oh.
But yeah, if your group has the vibe that would enjoy something like that, you can run it. If they don't run it.
It is, fair warning, a crazy hard encounter.
Yeah, it's really
for
difficult.
level 3 characters.
It's really difficult. Also, alternatively, if you really want to, like, do the total opposite of what this game is for, you can make them genuinely great people who are rescuing children and trying to keep them safe from the horrible things in this world. But why? Why? Why would you make something nice happen in Barovia? Don't!
There's one thing I did once that I actually really liked, which was, I made this a temporary effect. You could make it more permanent or less permanent. I made it removable by, remove curse, I want to say?
Yeah.
So, fixable,
but difficult to fix.
Basically, I had the hags be nice and matronly, have their kind of human guises on, invite them in, and they need child's souls to bake into their pastries.
Yeah.
To make the dream pastry. But Barovia is kind of running low on children.
Yeah.
Or I think child's souls, because they can make unsold child.
Yeah.
But children's bodies.
Yeah.
So basically, I had them offer to feed the party.
Yeah.
And
this is a terrifying thing that happened, by the way. I was there for this.
Have them make a kind of distracted, pretty high DC save to notice or resist an effect. That the more they eat, the younger they physically start to get.
Yeah.
Until they're children who can be made to their pastries.
Yeah.
Which is a horrifying thing to do, especially
It's
this
so
early
scary.
on in the game.
Yeah. You can mess around with Old Bone Grinder just like you can mess around with anywhere else, but it's kind of boring if you run it by the book, and it's also kind of hard as an encounter.
Yes.
So, if you don't want to deal with that, you can avoid it. After you pass Old Bone Grinder, and after you hopefully survive everything in the terrible, terrible forests of Barovia, you kind of get to Vallaki. If you're taking Arena, you can drop her off here. Again, don't. It is the biggest city in Barovia. There is a lot of stuff to do here. The festival is the big one. The, like, Festival of the Blazing Sun or whatever it's called. It's probably the biggest experience that you have in Vallaki by the book. I almost never run it.
Yep.
Because Vallaki is the best place to tie other stuff in. Character backstories, things that are important to them, plot hooks that are important to them. We have had tons of moments, stuff like characters who like kids find, like, an orphanage that we write into things, stuff like that. There's so many opportunities to not just connect to backstory stuff, but to current story stuff here.
Yeah, having Van Richten run a straight-up carnival here is something we've
that's
done
fun. We've done that several times with incredible degrees of success. It's so entertaining. And because it's so big, there's so much room to do stuff, and there's therefore so much room to either write in as an addition or to replace stuff that you want the characters to connect with. The festival's fine. We've run it before and it's been great, but it gets boring after a while.
Yes.
You should kind of try to do something big different with Vallaki every time you play it if you play it more than once.
It is also a city where you can just have batshit things happen.
Yeah, crazy stuff. There are some fun NPCs there. Izek is fun to play in literally any way you want to.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about the...
So, there are a couple things to do with Izek. One of the big things is Izek, by the book, is supposed to be Arena's brother.
Yes. We almost never run that because it's so weird.
Yes.
We one time ran it where another character in the party was Izek's sibling.
That's what I was about to say. To replace that, if there's any possibility, it's actually a decent idea to have one of the PCs.
Yeah.
That could feasibly be,
have been in Barovia, or have Izek not have been in Barovia for some reason. Or just have one of their parents not be there. You can play him as Arena's brother. It's boring. We play Arena as Ismark's blood sister. I keep doing that. Anyway, he's more fun to play. He has that demon arm.
Yeah.
And that's fun to play as, like, he's like a warlock or corrupted or both. there have been several times where we've run him as someone who, like, overthrew the governing body of Vallaki and was like, I'm the guard captain, so I'm gonna run the town now, and he's, like, super crazy. You have a ton of options. You can make him as scary and dangerous as you want, and that's fun.
Yeah, Lady Watcher is another thing that can be fun, but we don't typically run.
Yeah. We usually run other stuff in place of that. Especially when we want to run, like, a direct conflict with other power.
Yeah, you can have the Burgomaster, Electa the Burgomaster, totally insane.
Yes. Despite whether you're doing the festival or not, the Burgomaster should be insane. It's fun that way. There are a lot of people who just go crazy because of the terrible things happening in Barovia all the time.
And a good thing to do is to make them anywhere from out of the conflict to supportive of Strahd.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories comes from a messed up Vallaki. It is kind of related to one of our Game Tales episodes to come out after this. But through circumstances you'll have to find out later, Strahd had become a woman.
Yeah. That was fun. That was fun.
Against his will, Strahd had become a woman.
God, that was one of the best scenes we've ever had in anything. It was so good.
You can find the Game Tales episode about that.
Soon.
We'll retroactively link it if we remember.
Yeah. Whenever it comes out.
And Vallaki, knowing about this change, because everyone became aware of it, got some sort of high-powerful potion maker in the city. I think it was a non-book NPC.
Yeah.
To basically make everyone in the city take these polymorph potions.
Trans your gender potions.
To trans their gender. And when the party got there, they were instructed that they had to take them upon entry.
Yeah. That was fun and terrifying.
Yeah.
That was so fun. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff you can just randomly add in Vallaki that's relevant or irrelevant to whatever you're doing. We write a lot of NPCs into Vallaki. I'm gonna talk about the Were-Raven thing that we did recently. So we're obviously using the Were-Ravens. If you haven't seen yet, go watch the actual play. We're using Were-Ravens in the actual play. But in a even more messed up than normal Barovia, there was a faction of Were-Ravens who were trying to stop the Burgomaster from, like, being totally insane and ruling over the population. And they were, like, borderline starting a revolution, starting, like, a civil war. They were kind of already in a civil war. And the party kind of came in the middle of that and nearly got shot by, like, artificer turrets that were meant to kill any Were-Ravens that flew by. And the whole thing there culminated in, like, because Were-Ravens and Shadowkai are tied into the Raven Queen, and one of the characters in that game was a demigod of the Raven Queen, basically, like, entirely sacrificing herself to save the entire party in service to the demigod and the god herself. And that was one of the most heartbreakingly moving scenes we've ever done. Anyway, you can do anything you want in Vallaki, is what I'm getting at. We've done so much weird stuff in Vallaki.
Vallaki is one of the spaces where you can have the most creativity. I haven't even mentioned at this point St. Andrel's Bones.
Yeah, that's fun.
Which are a ward against Strahd, and
allegedly
Strahd wants them out of there. Allegedly, yeah.
You can use that or not use that. We've put the holy symbol in that cathedral before. We've also put a fake version of the holy symbol in that cathedral before to throw people off.
Vasily is another person that is often met in Vallaki.
Yeah. Who is Strahd's alter ego, if you didn't know that yet. You should go look at the book.
But yeah, Vasily
please look at the book
something
before listening to us.
That can be run, if you want to.
Yeah, it's fun. You can have him flirt with Arena in this guise. Again, it's really funny if he does that and Arena's a lesbian, like we ran in some other games. That was a very, very fun experience. That you're gonna talk about that later.
Yeah,
you're gonna talk about that.
That's what
things.
led to Strahd becoming a woman.
Yeah. It was the conversation basically went, Arena, I don't like boys. Vasily, okay, I won't be a boy anymore. And then Strahd turned into a girl, and not the alter ego, because we were playing them as, like, basically piloted separately, which was super fun. Go check out the game tale whenever that drops. We'll go into that in much more detail.
I can't believe check out the game tale is the send us ships of this episode.
Yeah. Send us ships. I want that joke to keep going. I want that to be like our tagline. I want that to be on a shirt.
That's our
Send us
Patreon
chips.
tagline when we launch our Patreon.
Send us chips. I want that on a merch shirt whenever we have the money to produce merch. Hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah. We talked a lot about Vallaki. So, we've talked a lot about Vallaki and other things. This got super long. I was planning for this to be a 2-part thing. It might become a 3-part thing. This is part 1 of question mark? Some amount of
2,
parts?
3,
7.
4.
We'll see.
This is now a How to Run Curse of Strahd podcast, apparently.
Yeah, this is now a How to Run Curse of Strahd podcast. If I wanted to make it that long, I would have talked more. But yeah, stay tuned for more parts of this section of the podcast, which is gonna get God knows how long. I'm Cass, this is the Penitent. Thanks for coming to part 1 of this section of the Academy, How to Run Curse of Strahd.
Thank you for watching this video from College of Lore. Remember to like this video, subscribe to join the party, and have a fantastic adventure.